Discovering Chinese dramas in 2018 opened up a whole new world of Asian dramas to me, and I've been hooked ever since. 4 years later, Tea and Soju was born, so that I can extend my love of Chinese dramas and Asian dramas in general to others out there and find a community. So, sit back and let's chat Asian dramas. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and in today's episode, we are talking everything Kunning Palace, and we have a guest, so I'll let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I am back and I'm Paroma. I co host Dramas Over Flowers and I occasionally write about K dramas. And yeah, that's what I do. That's who I am.
Yeah, you would have heard. Porma's been on the podcast before. Do you know, I can't remember what we recorded together because it was a while ago. It was for season one. But you have been on the podcast before. I'm going to have to look it up later and see. But she has been on the podcast before. And today we are going to be doing a review for A Story of Kunning Palace. You guys know by now, you would have listened to my Best of the Best 2023 Chinese dramas. This drama made it onto my 5 era dramas. I was living the dream while watching it. And, you know, I had to review it. So here we are. But before we get into all of that, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. If you like the podcast, please remember to subscribe and share and review on any of the platforms that you listen to. That really helps other listeners to find the podcast. And if you'd like to further support, we have Patreon, where I release behind the scenes, and also we have movie reviews and first impressions and everything over on there. Those links are in the description box. And then we have the socials, Instagram, we have Discord, we have all of that, and that is everything for that is linked in the description, and I will link my socials as well as Porma's socials, so do check both of those out. So that's it. That's the housekeeping out of the way. So before we just get into the episode, Porma, what have you been watching recently? We're going to release this episode later, so by the time this gets released, this would have been late, but what are you currently sort of watching right now?
I just started Samdalri
this
afternoon.
How are you finding that one?
So the thing is, I kind of started it before, practically on the day it started airing, and halfway through I realized the conflict that was coming, and I just paused, not because of the drama. I was just doing something else. I figured I'll come back and watch it. But between me pausing and then the next day, there was a lot of negative, discussion out, and I was a bit hesitant to go back in because on the one hand, I was trying to tune out spoilers, so I didn't want to know what people were complaining about specifically. But on the other hand, I was like, well, there's so much negativity to us still, and I still, unfortunately, have been a little burned by A, Worst of Evil, and B, See You in My 19th Life.
Yeah.
So both of them are on probation.
On probation.
So yeah. So I was like, I'll just wait it out, see how people feel about it in a couple of weeks' time. And honestly, it's petered out a little bit, like the initial, the whatever it was that was bugging people, it doesn't seem to have persisted. And quite a lot of people are liking it now. So I was like, okay, fine, it's safe. I can go back in again. There are dramas that I will ignore the chatter completely and watch regardless of what people are thinking. Kunning Palace being one of them. And then there are dramas where I am not so invested in picking it up that I will completely tune things out. I'll be like, I have 900 other things to watch. So But I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot right now. Yeah. I'm 5 episodes in.
I was going through my plan to watch list because it was getting ridiculous. There's so much stuff on there, and I was starting to clear it out realistically, looking at it and be like, this is stuff that I'm never going to watch. I need to just get it out of here. So that was interesting to do. But yeah, I don't know if I want to check this one out or not. I don't know. It's one of those dramas that I don't know if I need to be in a type of mood to watch it, and I haven't quite been in the mood to check it out. But yeah, so that's an interesting one. Right. I don't know, what have I been watching? I've been watching a couple of things, I think. Let me just see what's on my drama list. I have been watching let me just bring up my so I've
While
started go for it. What were you gonna say?
I'll say while you're looking that up, I was just because again we were discussing this before we started the
We
episode.
were.
Dead's Game dropped four
Have
episodes.
you watched them yet?
I was the first to, and
Okay.
I'm still processing.
I'm
I'm
still
not.
processing.
Yeah, it was a lot, I'm still like have so many thoughts, but it's interesting. I'm actually for once I'm actually glad that they divided into two parts because a lot happens very quickly.
Okay.
So just having four episodes to process is, I think, a little easier.
I feel like you're convincing me that I need to watch it now as opposed to waiting a little bit longer because I was gonna leave it closer to the like second part coming out, but
You can absolutely do that because my podcast co-host Saya, she watched the whole thing and then she was immediately like, I can't believe I have to wait for the second part to
okay.
come out. She's on pins and needles, and she's told me that apparently ending of episode four does something that is really surprising, and that just makes the wait
Oh,
worse.
worse. I think is it coming out? I think it comes out like the second part comes out quite soon, doesn't it? Is
Yeah, I
it?
think in a week or two.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
they're not.
Okay, so I could watch like I could realistically like start watching it and then just like pace myself with it if I could manage to do that. But I do really want to watch it because the cast on that is insane and
So good,
like
so good.
there's no way I was not going to watch that. So I feel like this is a really good one for me to sit down and watch with my partner because it's the type of drama that I think he'll enjoy as well. And also that means I will pace myself because if I watch with him, like I'll watch like one episode here, one episode there. So I tend to like stick pretty hard to, I will wait for him to watch it together. So maybe that's the way to go about this one.
Yeah, there are some dramas that just feel dense, like even if it's like really fast-paced and
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like, it's supposed to be watched in that sort of heatless space. But then when you sit back, you kind of enjoy it a little more because yeah, it was too much. It was too
Too
a
much.
lot.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to ask him to watch this one with me, I think, and do it that way because I am very excited. I have heard really good things about it. So, and with a cast like that, if you do not do justice to that cast, my
That would
God,
be
that would be
that would be so annoying.
tragic.
That would
That
be
would
so
be,
bad.
yeah.
Are you
So
watching My Demon?
I am. I'm completely caught up. And I'm so annoyed that there's no episodes this week. I was like, I was so mad.
I know, it's so annoying. And on the one hand, it's annoying, but on the other, I'm actually a little glad because not for myself, not as a viewer, but from the production standpoint, because the way they ended the last episode.
I was like, oh my God, episode 10. I was like, I need episode 11 right now, like now. So my journey with this, this is one that I am watching with my partner again. And we watched it, and I think like episode maybe 7, 8, I was getting a little bit, I don't know, bored. Maybe the story just wasn't progressing, and I was like, I'm not sure I want to keep watching this at this point. But then like he was like let's watch a couple more. So then we watched 9 and 10, and by 10 I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like this is I'm right back on it again now. And like,
Yeah, they
and
properly like got the tension high. I love the conflict of the episode. Now I
good.
need 11 so I can see like Song Kang's perspective of those
Exactly.
last minutes. And yeah.
I just yeah, yeah. And I've still got a lot of questions and everything, and they're doing a quite a good job. So I'm really excited to see where the
I'm
story
really
goes.
impressed
Yeah.
because this is an original script it feels like a webtoon adaptation.
It does.
But
I didn't know that.
it's an original script. But you know what is so hilarious? I could just die laughing. They released a webtoon version. And every, as the drama airs, the webtoon version is
Oh
also
my
getting
God, that's
released.
ridiculous. Seriously.
Like somebody read the script and was like, this reads like a webtoon, so that's what we should make of
Yeah,
it.
let's make some more money. God. So yeah, I am watching My Demon. I am completely caught up on that one, and I'm also watching the story of Park's marriage
Oh, me
contract.
too.
And
Me
do you
too.
know what? I was so happy. I actually am behind on that one, but it was for a reason, because I thought they're probably going to enter like their very angst. They're going to ramp it up for the this sort of, we're in the last stretch now. So I was like, this is great. It finishes this weekend, and I was like, no, it doesn't. It finishes next weekend. So my idea was I was going to binge like episode like 9, 10, 11, 12 like tomorrow. That was my plan. I had it, I had it great. And then like somebody mentioned to me, oh no, it's not airing this week. It's airing next week. And I was like, no. I was
Oh
so
no,
disappointed. I was like, oh my God, that's my well thought out plan down the drain now. So yeah, but I'm really enjoying that one as well.
it's really entertaining. I love both the leads, but especially what's her name? Iseong, I think. I really love her. She's perfectly cast
I
as
love
like
her.
genius Joshin lady.
Yeah.
I wish it had taken her a little longer to adjust to the future, because I think she adjusted really quickly.
Yeah, she was on there very quick, wasn't she?
On day one, she's wearing like a dress with her like knees and calves showing, and I'm like, a Joshin woman. This is not like phasing her at all.
No. She was like, I'm ready. I'm good to go. So yeah, that's what I'm also watching. I think for Chinese dramas, I'm watching The Last Immortal. So I'm completely caught up with that one. And I don't know.
I just picked up Ancient Love Song.
I've watched that.
I was not expecting that. I was not
really
expecting it to be good.
It's really good. It's really, really good. It's one of the shorter dramas that are like some of my favorites in general. So yeah, I
And
really
it's a
like
web drama, right? I don't think it was I don't think it's like it was produced by any of the bigger
No. It's
companies.
like yeah. It's a small sort of drama, I think. Let me just check.
Yeah, it says 14 episodes.
Yeah.
And it says Chongqing TV and Mango TV. So
Oh yeah, you've got Mango TV, I suppose, but yeah, it's one of the better shorter dramas. So I really, really liked that one. That's a really good drama. So yeah, I have watched that one, and I'm watching Ripe Town, which everybody says it's really good. I was like straight into that drama. It's like so dark and moody, and I'm like, I have no idea. And I love the fact that they kind of solve the case very quickly, but there's a lot of story behind it. So I'm really enjoying that one. That's what I want to finish that one before the end of the year. So I've got, that's just a few that I've got on my current
I
watching.
really like that we have these like relatively high production shorter C dramas now, because that was rare in the last few years. Like you got some like Reset, which sorry, not Reset. What was it called? There was this Bad Kids, I think.
Oh
That was
yeah, the Bad Kids. You've got the Bad
Yeah.
Kids and the Longest Night. They're like the Aichi light on series, crime thriller dramas. They were really good. Like all those were really,
Really
really, really good. Really
shot
good.
beautifully. Like you just don't expect
Mm.
cinematography like that in a crime thriller, but
No,
yeah.
no. And the thing is, I wish. So the thing is, that's like, I think it's either the director or the writer for that worked on both of those. And they worked with Aichi to produce those. And they lost this director. I can't remember if it's the director or the screenwriter. They lost it to Tencent. And he seems to be working with Tencent, but Tencent doesn't seem to be doing anything with him. And I'm like,
Oh
I
no.
just wish he would come back to work with Aichi again for the
Aichi.
Light On series, because I adored it, and I think it's, he did brilliantly on those dramas. So we shall see. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the point of poaching like a great talent and then completely just sitting on it and not letting
Yeah.
him actually do the thing?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there. I'm hoping he'll be working on something. I don't know. I can't remember if it's the writer or the screenwriter. Let me just bring it up. The Badge Kids. I'm pretty sure it's either the director. Yeah, it's no, it's not the director. Screenwriter, because I know it was a screenwriter. And or is it the original creator? It might be the original creator. I know it was somebody. Yeah, there we go. It's the original creator for The Bad Kids and The Long Night. His name is Chen Zi Jin, and he's like he did the story for both of them. Like he created both of those stories. But see, there's nothing else coming up for him, so that's a little bit sad. I hope he gets to work on some other stuff again, because he definitely did a really good job. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we get into today's episode? I mean, listeners are used to this by now. They know. They know that,
Yeah, we are only 50 minutes into talking about
it's
dramas.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. Listeners are used to this by now. I mean, my episodes are anything but short, and they're anything but, they tend to be a little bit chaotic, anyways. Right. So, Kunning Palace. I'm just going to give the MDL description, and that is Jiang Shuning's unrelenting desire to become empress eventually strains her bond with her childhood friend Yan Lin and leads to the arrest of the noble official Zhang Zi. Guilt and remorse begin to seep in when her short-lived reign as the empress comes to an end with the help of Yan Lin as the general. Rebels seize the capital and ruthlessly exterminate the entire royal family. In her last desperate act, Jiang Shuning pleads to exchange her life for the freedom of Zhang Zi, a man who always has shown her kindness. As fate takes an unexpected turn, Jiang Shuning awakens in the body of her 18-year-old self who has yet to enter the palace. Given another chance at life, she vows to live differently beyond the palace walls. Yet fate would not let her escape. She becomes entangled in the palace intrigues once again as Princess Li Yang's study companion and disciple of Xu Wei, the well-respected imperial teacher and emperor's advisor, who also happens to be the mastermind behind the heinous rebellion that leads to her demise. So that's actually a really, really good MDL description. I was impressed. Like, MDL descriptions sometimes are so hit and miss. So for cast, we've got Bai Lu, who plays Jiang Shuning. We've got Zhang Linghe, who plays Xi Wei. We've got Wang Xing Yu, who plays Zhang Zi. We've got Zhou Jun Wei, who plays Yan Lin. And then we've got Liu Shi Ning, who plays Chen Ziyi, or, Princess Li Yang. So this was directed by director Chu Yu Bun, who has directed a bunch of stuff, and he does usually really, really well. So he's directed The Starry Love, he's directed The Long Ballad, he's directed Eternal Love of Dream, or also known as 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms. So he's like stranger to the game. He's directed a bunch of things and he does it, he does a really good job. This was also directed, we've got like 3 directors for this. This was also directed by Francis Nam, and he's directed Nothing But You and The Legend of Two Sisters in Chaos. And also directing was Gu Zi Wei, and he's also directed The Starry Love and Skate into Love and Guardian. So all like very well renowned directors in a sense of they've done really, really good jobs. And then for screenwriters, we've got Ren Zhuang Liu and Yan Mo Yi. And both of those, I couldn't find any more credits for them other than this. So I don't know if that information is just not available or if it's the fact that it's their first time screenwriting. I don't know. So that's directors and screenwriters, and this was filmed between 21st of May 2022 and the 8th of September 2022. So they had it on the shelf for about a year. So post-production and everything from, them finishing, it was about a year, which is fairly regular for dramas, anything between 6 months to a year after they are finished recording. So that's all the info out of the way. Now,
just an insight. Yan Moi does have one other credit though. It's
does
Heroes in Harm's
he?
Way. Yeah, but I think he may have been. Sorry, she may have been a junior writer on that one because it's not a primary credit.
That's how did I not? Is it coming up on MDL?
It's coming up on MDL, yeah.
How did I not see that? I think it's
Because
because I was doing it
usually,
from Wiki Addicts as opposed to.
but also Wiki Addict usually gives like primary credits. They don't usually put it in if it's like, there's somebody when they were like a junior screenwriter. So I think that might be it. This might be the first big project
Big
that these
project that
screenwriters have.
that they've done. Okay, well there we go. So yeah, that's, and to say like if this is their first project, blame it, what a project
Wow.
to start on. Like so yeah. So without any further ado, let's just go straight. We're just gonna do the non-spoiler impressions. So just give us the very first. Did you enjoy the drama? What were your thoughts? But without any spoilers, and then we can get into the spoilers just a little bit after that. How did you find the drama for you?
I loved it. I
Yeah.
couldn't wait for the next episodes. I'm somebody who like there are times when I see certain issues with the drama and then I find it hard to progress.
Mm-hmm.
With this drama, the main conceit of it was so compelling. The actors they cast were, for the most part, they did a really good job. The directing, again, like I know it's not everybody's favorite with some other choices that were made. Doesn't matter, was working for me. The character beats worked really well. The story progression worked really well. Every episode had something eventful happening. It felt really fast paced.
Yeah.
Conversely, the last 10 episodes, even though they were cramming in so much, felt like had a slower pace than the first 30.
Mm.
But I couldn't wait for the next episode. This was the reason I finally got IGE, by the way. I was refusing to get it. Not only did I get IGE, I wanted to get like the final entire drop. So I got like the highest
Yeah, the
level that they
highest.
had.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter because I got it, and then I found out that they didn't drop they didn't do that drop in my country.
They didn't
So
do the
it was
fast
for
pass.
nothing.
No.
Yeah. So
I
that
don't think I don't think they did the fast pass altogether because I don't think I got it. I think they released it, or did I? I can't actually remember. I may have gotten the fast pass because the thing is, I will say it's bizarre, but they seem to treat the UK as not Europe because, like, I have friends in Europe who will be like, "But I don't have that show. Like, I don't have that fast pass," and there's me like sitting in the UK, like, but I do. Like, my is available here. So it's bizarre sometimes how they worked. So
they do underestimate the EU market. For them, their primary, like in the West, it's the US and the UK that gets priority for them when it comes to drops and stuff. And then they're like, oh wait, there are countries under UK.
Oh my God. just as an aside, I was humbled because I went back to Portugal. I think it was one of these might have been airing. It might have been this one, or I think it was still the Story of Kunning Palace. And I went back in November at some point. And so much stuff that I was watching just was not available in Portugal. That I was like,
Oh.
oh my God, I was humbled to a T. That's like getting my VPN out to try and like watch this stuff. Because I was like, I just take it for granted because I just have access to pretty much everything back in the UK. So yeah, I finally understood what it's like to not have access to a bunch of stuff.
Hilariously, like Netflix, when they first started getting into K-drama land and were picking up other Asian dramas, India had everything. They dropped everything here, whereas my friends sitting in the US and UK weren't getting the same dramas.
No.
And the reason for that was because for my, like, they were buying dramas in bulk, especially from JTBC.
Yeah.
So they were damn cheap. And so, of course, like even JTBC had some idea, like geographically, what they could charge for US was not the same thing that they could charge for India. So for our country, because Netflix was establishing themselves here, they needed to have like a broader catalog. They just kept buying dramas in bulk and dropping them in India. And suddenly I had access to a gazillion dramas. And my friends were like, but we don't. Why?
Regional restrictions and all.
It's hilarious.
But getting back to this one, I loved this drama, and I will say I definitely went in because it was by Lou and it was Zhang Wing He, and you know they are people that I adore to watch on screen anyways, so I was gonna check it out anyways. But the thing is, I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. So I have found this year, for the first time ever in my, 5 years of watching Asian dramas, that I actually love like historical period dramas. This has never happened to me. Like, I like fantasy, I like the xianxas, I like that sort of thing. But I tend to stick to like rom-coms and romances and comedies. But this year, like I was looking at my top dramas, 4 of them were period costume dramas, and not even like fantasy dramas. Well, apart from Till the End of the Moon, but like 3 of them were just straight up like wuxia politic, dramas. And I was like, what has happened to me? Because I have always said this is not my type of genre. But for a drama to capture me so much that despite its genre, I'm like completely hooked, and I am just like watching this, because to me what this drama felt like was this huge chess game of various players, and I was like, I just wanted to watch who's gonna make the next move, like who's gonna, where is the next move coming from. And I was hooked every single episode. And it's the fact that for some reason it wasn't necessarily that every episode ended on a cliffhanger, but they did it in a way that you could not help but you just wanted to click play on the next episode. And I love when a drama does that, because it just gives you that I just want to binge this whole thing like right now. And that's what I was finding for this drama. I really, really did love it from, beginning to end. Yes, there's niggly things, but it's one of those dramas that I can ignore the niggly things because I loved it that much. So yeah, I know it won't be a drama that's like everybody's cup of tea, because yes, there is politics, there is the relationships are grey to say the least. To say the very least, and that's not everybody's like ideal sort of setup, but I think this is one that if you like historicals and if you like political intrigue and that sort of thing, this is it. And I also say I don't class this as like a romance drama. I feel like the romance is like a very, very side plot. It's just like the cherry on top, so to speak. I don't think it's the main thing in this at all. So if people go in thinking they're gonna have this big sweeping romance, that's definitely not what this drama is about.
I think that definitely worked to its detriment, because most of the complaints I was hearing about Kunning Palace were not the complaints I was expecting, because I had other issues. The complaints were, why hasn't the romance started yet? Why is it taking so long? We're 30 episodes in.
Where's the romance
going to start?
Yeah. And I think that's probably like a marketing thing. If they haven't, they did market this as like almost a historical period romance
But it
drama.
was the casting. You cast Bailu.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's
If that is true, if you cast by Luke, you tend to expect romance. Like that she's made for romance dramas. But you know, it is what it is. I think I still enjoyed it a lot, you know, despite all of that. So yeah. So
I think I was 10 episodes in when I was pretty convinced I knew what the end game was. And I wasn't wrong. I was perfectly right.
yeah.
But also because I had the end game sorted in my head, I started picking up the foreshadowing, the connections, and all of that stuff. I enjoyed it. My favorite genre of romance, and I honestly treat Kunning Palace as a romance because for me it worked, was slow burn romances. I like
This
it
is
when
very slow. Yeah.
it's very slow burn because you know what they do is they build the foundation of like, you know, trust and knowing each other's abilities before any real feelings are expressed, and that worked for me a
It
lot.
worked for me. I think for me, at the end of the day, I was very much aware, like you, I was very much aware who was going to be Endgame. Like they make it. I think for me, I think they made it very obvious. There was no
Yeah.
way she was going to end up with anybody else but who she ended up with because it
Mm.
just didn't make sense. Like her type of character fitted with the type of character that she ended with. Like there was, you know,
I mean, it was either this or they were all going to die. I mean, there were no other options.
I agree. I agree. It was either or. I don't think, you know, we would have had it any other way. So yeah. Should we get into before we just get into spoilers, because I know
Mm.
like I did a first impressions for this for Patreon, and somebody who, you know, I've been talking to for a good while, she listened to it and she was like, I could hear in your voice how held back you were to not talk about spoilers. And I was like, I really tried, but it was so hard. And I was like, because, you know, with Chinese dramas, it's just one of those things that I just, you know, you just want to get into the spoilers. So before we just get into that, what would you rate this drama? And we've got it 1 teacup all the way down to 5 teacups. So 1 teacup is you didn't really enjoy it, but something somehow still kept you watching. And that's like a 1 to a 5.5 on MDL. 2 teacups is it was okay, not really the best, but an okay pastime. And that's like a 6 to a 7 on MDL. And then 3 teacups is good. I enjoyed this drama and would recommend to people who enjoy this genre. And that is a 7.5 to an 8 on MDL. And then 4 teacups is like you really enjoyed it, loved it, would recommend to a wider audience. There may be a couple of problems, but overall still very much enjoyable to watch. And that's like 8.5 to a 9.5 on MDL. And then like you've got your 5 teacups, like this is the rating reserved for those dramas that like I chased and absolutely love them. Like I can ignore all problems with it because I loved it that much. Now, for me, this is very much like a 5 teacup. And the reason is I know there's problems with it, but I can overlook all of them because I love the drama so much. And this drama made it to what I called like I instead of doing like my 5 top Chinese dramas, I did like what I called my eras dramas. This is the type of drama that I was like chasing the behind the scenes. I watched the variety show. I was like in this world for the amount of time that this drama was airing. So that is why for me it's like it's a 5 teacup. It's like, you know, one of my favorites of this year for sure. So
Can I give it a 4.5 teacups?
yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can be the voice of reason because like there is no way I can be unbiased with a drama like this. Like, and I think it's okay for people to not be, you know, to be biased towards
No,
something
but
as long as you admit
you have
it.
to understand that for me, 4.5 teacups
Yeah,
is
that's
me
high.
basically
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
me basically going completely crazy about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was no way I was gonna be not biased towards this drama. Let's put it that way. And I've always said it's okay to be biased towards something, or, as long as you're aware of it, and as you can say, I am biased towards this. So take my opinions with a pinch of salt because they
Oh, yeah,
will
yeah,
be
absolutely.
biased. I think it's totally cool to be that way as long as you can know it and admit to it. So I will fully hold my hands up and be like, I'm very biased towards this. So, So, without further ado, let's move straight on to spoiler section. So, if you haven't watched The Kunning Palace or the story of Kunning Palace, go ahead and watch it and then come back and listen to this part of the drama. Or if you have watched it, you can go ahead and listen to all the spoilers. Or if you're like me and you like spoilers anyways, just go ahead and listen. So, I will start it off. And the first thing we sort of got down here is, what was your favorite character? Now, for me, this is really, really hard to choose because I don't think I can. I was trying to decide who my favorite character was, and it's gotta be between either Jiang Xiaoning, so our female lead, and it's got it like Shi Wei, our male lead, because they're just such complex characters that I really, really enjoyed it. But then, I also love the princess, and I also love the An Lin. Like, the main cast is also good. So, I don't know. Paroma, what was your favorite character, do you think?
Xiaowei.
Yeah.
No competition. I generally loved Baidu, and honestly, Baidu's character is the reason I got into the drama, just like you, because I'm a big fan. But slowly and inexorably, Zhang Linghe pulled ahead. I thought his performance was really good. Like, for the material that he was given on the script, I think his performance elevated it. And also, he was working against some seriously bizarre camera angles.
They did do some weird angles in this drama, didn't they, at one point?
Yeah. So, but I liked it. I loved all of the I like the entire cast. But in the younger amongst the younger ones, definitely Xiaowei was my favorite, and after that Zhang Xuning. But also in the older cast, like, man, they got some superior senior actors
They
in
really
this one.
did.
So Zhoning's parents, both actors were they were so good. I'm always really, and also the one who was playing Yanglin's dad.
Yes.
The gentleman. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, Zhao Wei and his uncle had like a whole other romantic arc going. I was just so invested in that.
their relationship was just so good. The fact
It
that
was perfect. It
the
was
fact
perfect.
that the uncle very much knows that's his nephew, but chooses to kind of I think he knew for a good while that was his nephew, but he chose to not acknowledge it because Shi Wei didn't want to acknowledge it at that point. I'm like, I adore this. Like, this is good, parenting right here, in a sense. Like, I adored that relationship. And
Yeah.
in a sense, where we were seeing just such bad parenting moves on a lot of fronts, it was good to see a good parenting move for once.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really did like this. I don't know. I think it's a lot there was commentary that Zhang Linghe wasn't, it could have been played better by other actors. Now, I personally want to say Zhang Linghe has been acting for 3 years. 3 years. That's it. That's it. Like, that to me says that if this is what he's doing at 3 years into a career, give him another 5 years of experience, and I can't wait to see what he can do. Because the thing is, he didn't go to a acting school, he didn't go to any of those. He was studying at university to be an engineer, and he changed career paths, and I'm like, he didn't come from any acting background, nothing. So if this is what he can do 3 years into his career, goodness knows what he's going to be doing, in 10 years time. And I think he did a really, really good job. Now, I haven't read the book, but you've read it, haven't you, Paula? You've read the
Yeah.
novel.
I
And
couldn't wait. I think I was like 15 episodes in, and the next week's drop hadn't happened, and I was
you
like hyperventilating.
So I've started reading the novel, but then Christmas got in the way and all of that, and then I just did not have the time to finish it. But like I have heard that his character in the book itself is a way more obsessive. It's way more like drastic than he is in the drama. I heard that they like
It's
toned it
darker.
down. Yeah.
His character is darker, but also his character is like the original character was really compelling.
Mm.
Um, the interesting thing about these web novels is that they aren't really restricted the same way storytelling in other media is
Yeah.
in China. So they can often really go pretty dark and deep and often cross boundaries, make the characters, not this one specifically, I'm saying like other characters, they can be pretty toxic, they can be sexually explicit, they can be a lot of things. For instance, when I was back when Untamed was airing, I again lost my mind and went and looked up Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation for the web novella, and I read the whole thing, and then it doesn't end. Like there are epilogues after epilogues after epilogues. And
the Grandmaster is notorious for having a bunch of epilogues. There's so many to it.
So I wasn't unhappy about that. I was really happy. But also it was so interesting to read the written character and then watch the interpretation on screen. They were, while the story was very similar, their experiences were very similar, as people they were kind of distinct. You couldn't really map the actors on the screen onto the characters that you were reading. They became entirely different people. But I had a similar experience with this one. But when I was reading Kunning, I think so there are different English titles used for the web novel. I don't want to confuse anybody, but I'm just gonna call it Kunning because that's what what MDL calls it. When I was reading that, I realized pretty quickly that it's in the like, again, even in the novel, we are in the spoiler section, so I can say that in the
you can go
itself,
ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead and spoil whatever you want now.
You could tell that Xiao Wei's relationship with Juning was going to be like the main focus. Like it's where things kept coming back, and there, the two lifetimes and the two kinds of relationships that they had is kind of like the main thrust of the story.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting reading the novel because Zhao was actually a pretty horrible, like in the first version, he was pretty horrid. Like we saw hints of that in the drama, of course, but like it was a lot more explicit in the novel. And again, horrid as in like he was cruel because that's where it went. Like if in the drama, they actually do a really good job of explaining how and why he doesn't become the person he was in the first timeline.
Yeah, they do.
And it's basically his relationship with Juning. He has somebody to live for. In the first timeline, he had nobody to live for, so he could just be his evil worst because he always knew that he was not going to survive that timeline. The drama doesn't make it very explicit that is what she was seeing absolutely at the end, like when she had that dream where he ends his life and she wakes up from it. But that's what it was in the original timeline. After he had completed the coup, Juning had died. He had placed a puppet king, basically like a new king on the throne. He just went away and ended his life. That's how the first timeline ends. And that's because he always knew he had no reason to live. And that is also something that in the second timeline, we have Zhao Wei's character say in different points of time, I have nothing to live for. It's why he was so reckless with his own life.
He really was.
His body. Yeah. But then when he realized he had fallen in love, he suddenly had fear. And that was also like, he expressed that to his friends. Like, I don't want to die now
Mm.
because I have somebody I care about. And I
Yeah.
like that the drama like kept those integral parts of his character, that journey intact. So I really liked the screen adaptation of his character. And with Zhang Linghei's performance, I thought it was
Yeah.
definitely made into something special.
Yeah, I was going to say, because obviously I had this question down for later, but we can just, since we're on the topic of the book anyways, I
Mm.
haven't finished it, so I can't answer this question. But since you have, do you think that ultimately this was a good book to screen adaptation overall? Like, we knew that not everything in this book was ever going to be put onto the story because you just can't with censorship and stuff. Things just don't fly. And like
Mm.
you mentioned, a lot of things that fly in a web novel in China doesn't tend to fly, in general, because people can hide behind pseudonames and all of that. So it's easier to sort of,
Yeah.
get through that. Whereas a drama, you can't do that. But do you like overall, do you think it's a good like adaptation?
I think it's a really good adaptation.
Mm.
It kept the spirit of the story very much the same. Um, I will go into my small disappointments later on in the
Yeah.
episode,
Yeah.
but it was not a fault of adaptation. I have a question for you here, though,
Yeah.
because there is this particular thing that they left in the drama that had absolutely no context, and unless you've read the novel, you would not know why that scene is there. So my question for you is, this is a rumor that I heard that apparently this was supposed to release early 2023, right? And then the laws came into effect and it got delayed almost. People thought it was going to be scrapped completely.
So
Because no, hold on. I'll just
okay,
finish
okay.
my question. I know the controversy why it was almost scrapped, and
Hmm.
I hope you go into that. I hope you cover that. But also the restriction on the number of episodes also came into play. So we know that they severely cut down the number of overall episodes. This was originally apparently supposed to be a 50 episoder, and
Yeah.
they apparently had to slash some 10 episodes. And you can see that in a few scenes. Not overall. I think
No.
overall they did a good job with the pacing. But there is one scene that I will bring up, which was completely out of context unless you've read the novel. But I want you to explain like why this got delayed by a year.
So basically, I think originally it was meant to air. I don't think it was early. I think it was meant to be like a summer release. And it was meant to air because it finished recording. So September 8th, 2022. And they would need at least 6 months or so to sort of, clean it up. By rule of thumb, and this may not be, again, I don't claim to know everything, but from like the experience that I get, they at least need 6 months to sort of turn it into, from finishing recording to then, all the post work stuff and all of that. So you would have put it at like, second quarter of 2023, and then the rule came out and they had to like re-edit, rejig everything. So yeah, and then there was a scandal with one of the actors that is involved in the drama. I think it was kind of like a dating scandal, or I can't quite remember at the time.
So it was with Zhao Junwei, who played the third male lead.
Mm,
What you would call him. He was basically the bestie dude who goes off to war, Zhao Wei's nephew. And what he had done was that he had, I think, posted or reposted something that was protesting, China's
oh, the government,
uh,
wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, basically their handling of the pandemic.
Mm,
And that is apparently why not only did like apparently there was some noise made and the government put some pressure on, and it was pulled off air
yeah.
like right before broadcasting was going to start,
Well, it's
which
because, yeah, we got a date for it and everybody got very excited. And then people were like, I think it was literally the day before it was meant to air or something. I know it was very, very close. It didn't
yeah.
actually start airing, but it was like the day before or the day of. I know it was very, very close. They sort of put out a statement, and their statement was, technical difficulties has made us push this drama back. And then, like, basically what they had to do was wait it out until everything sort of died down. And, I don't know whether, because obviously I didn't watch the original one. We will never know if they rejigged it again and took some of his scenes out to, like, minimize his on-screen time, which wouldn't I wouldn't put it past them to do that. I don't know if that's the case or not. But that's what they did. I always find it hilarious because anytime they do this, it's always technical difficulties. And we're like, oh, we know you've run into censorship trouble and that's why you're pulling it off.
Apparently, the senior actor who played the Dowager Queen, she was also apparently caught up in some controversy, again, politically related.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, yeah.
It's hard being a Chinese drama watcher when it comes to stuff like this and this is why I'd rather them cut it down to 40 episodes and air it in one go. Because if you have to wait a year between one thing and the, one part and the next, a lot can happen in a year. And, let's just say lots of dramas are sitting on the shelf and will sit on the shelf for a long while. I will forever be sad about Immortality, the one with Chen Fei-yu and Liu Yunqi. I will forever be sad about that drama because goodness, that was so promising in so many ways. But that was what was happening. So I got very excited. We were going to get the drama, and then literally like the day before, I think it was very, very close to the date it was meant to air. And this is why I always say, don't trust it unless you can press play on it on your screen. And even then, still be wary of it because they will pull that off air. I think the only thing you can compare it to is in Korea they had what was it? That one where they aired like 1 or 2 episodes and then they pulled it off air.
I know the Joseon something.
Was it Joseon Exorcist? Was that what it was called? Yeah. And they like pulled it off air like within 2 episodes. I have never seen that happen in South Korea. That was the first time. Like, to me,
it got a lot of backlash.
So and if you tread the line too much of censorship, you just don't air. It's as simple as that. Like, they are very rigorous over there, unfortunately. So, it is what it is.
So again, coming back to the editing that they did, this particular scene had to do with, again, since we're going full spoiler. So the female lead has a friend. I forget her name. Was it Tangyar? I don't remember. The business savvy friend.
Let me just. Is it?
Fan Ying.
Yeah, Fan Ying. Yeah.
So Fan Ying had. So she dies basically in the end, and it's really sad. But there is this one exchange of dialogue that makes literally no sense in the drama, which is while Fan Ying is dying, she's like, I always feel like I took somebody's place, that I am not the one that was supposed to be here. And so she's like, no, and so in response to that, Juning is like, no, you're the best, Fan Ying, you are, you were always the one that I needed next to me. This only makes sense if you read the novel and you realize that in the first timeline, Fan Ying was a time traveler from the future who basically a modern woman who was business savvy went into the body of historical Fan Ying. So the original Fan Ying was non-existent in the first timeline.
That makes sense.
Because, I mean, listen, she falls into a body of water. What does that mean? Somebody from the future comes and possesses your body.
True.
And anyway, so that girl, that Fan Ying, with the brains of a modern woman, was really business savvy, and she really helped Juning.
Yeah.
And so that was her best friend. That was the Fanning who was her bestie. And so this Fanning referencing, I am not the one who was supposed to be next to you, is basically saying I am not, because she really worked hard at figuring out the business, but she didn't have that natural savvy.
Yeah.
This was a struggle for her, but she was very hardworking and honest and earnest, so she made it work. Plus, Juning already had like future knowledge, so she, that
Yeah.
helped a lot. But like this Fanning is basically acknowledging that she knows that she lacked in ways that the other Fanning
Did
didn't.
not.
And
Yeah.
so again, that dialogue makes no sense in the drama.
No. So to me, I just read that scene as her being like, so Shuning just having the idea of the other timeline, Fangin, but I didn't know that's where it was coming from. I just thought, oh, it's, just the original friend that she had in that timeline compared to this, and they're different because there's differences, but I didn't assume, oh, that would have made sense. Yeah, but that would have never made it. They would have not.
Yeah,
And I
they
suppose
couldn't have had multiple time travelers.
no. That would have get. And the thing is, they probably could if the story was longer and they had the time to sort of tell that story. But I suppose, in the sense of cutting off time where it needed to, it would have been easier for them to do. That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, you would have never been able to know that unless you'd read the book. So I'm sure listeners will be quite interested to listen to that tidbit. But yeah, there's always things that you sort of have to lose in a sense to adapt a story, and I suppose that was the thing they adapted. It was really sad that she died. I kind of didn't see it coming in a way, because
Yeah, I didn't either.
because the way she dies as well, I feel like it's a little bit dumb. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, totally. He is running away. He left her. He's running away. She went and threw herself on the soil.
I'm like, that's why if she had died in a more, I don't know, grandiose way, or I don't know, in a way that made sense to me, then I would have been fine. But she dies in a bit of a dumb way, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's no need for this character to die right now. The only reason that they would have her die right now is that just Shuning would kill him off. But I think she was close to doing that anyways, so there was no need for, that was one little niggly thing for me that I didn't think was necessarily needed to happen. Does it happen? Does she die in the book as well?
Yeah, she dies in the book.
Okay.
Okay, but do you want me to tell you the other change that they made, which again was necessary because of censorship, but which also completely changed how the story happened? So we're talking about Bailey's relationship with Juning's relationship with Zhang Jie.
Yeah.
And Zhang Jie in the first half was so compelling to me. I didn't think he would be endgame, but I found her guilt towards him so interesting. And the way he responded to her, which was like in a reserved way, but you could see from like the flashbacks that they had an intense relationship in the first timeline, and she felt like she had corrupted him. And so in this timeline, she's mostly staying away from him, but also has some hope that maybe in this time I can do love right. And like I can be with him without it being like, a horrible thing for him. The problem here is that the drama chose to do their story, how I interpreted it, was that the reason Zhang Jie was not the right one for Juning in the second timeline was because Juning just like, there was like a really stupid thing that happened. Like history repeated itself. He went on a mission without telling his mom that. And so his mom basically died in a horrible way. And honestly, like he couldn't tell her the secret, fine, but nobody from his office could come out and be like just reassure her in secret, nothing. They couldn't keep an eye on the woman. That just gave me an aneurysm. So the Juning takes it upon herself to believe that it's because of her being in his life that he lost his mother again in this timeline, and that's why she cuts him off. She's like, you're not the one for me, basically. Like she brutally like crushes his heart and walks away, because she's like, I need to cut this off. Otherwise, I don't know what she thought would happen otherwise. Again, I'm not super fond of the storyline where you hurt somebody to prevent future hurt. Makes zero sense to me. But that is what they chose here, where
Mm.
Juning unilaterally, like by herself, decided, I am a bad influence on this guy. I will hurt him in some mysterious ways, and therefore we cannot be.
Yeah.
The book does it better. Do you know how? Because Zhang Jie is also a time traveler.
Yeah, I
So
think I
just
think
like,
I remember us chatting about this. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So just like Juning had a second go at life, Zhang Jie in the first timeline also kills himself pretty soon after, because Juning, when she's dying, she asks Zhao Wei to
To have mercy on him, to release
yeah,
him.
have
Yeah.
to release him. So by the time Zhao Wei heads to the prison to basically deal with Zhang Jie's already offed himself.
Yeah, brilliant.
So Zhang Ji's also gone back into his body, a much younger body, and he's also reliving the timeline. And initially, he doesn't like he doesn't make it obvious. It doesn't become
Yeah,
obvious.
yeah, yeah.
And eventually, though, they both, because he is also giving her a second chance. So just like he's trying to figure out the moral compass of Zhao Wei's character, he's also trying to understand the moral compass of Juning's character, who seems
Yeah.
drastically different than she seemed in the first timeline.
Yeah.
And because he also has foreknowledge of what happens, and also what she had, the choices she had made before, as he sees her making different choices, his opinion of her does change. But ultimately, what happens is that the weight of the first timeline stands between them. What had
Mm.
happened between them before won't just go away. That's history
No.
for them. It's not just something that's undone. It's not in just one person's memory, it's both of their
Yeah.
memories. So that itself became like a horrible thing between them, that just they, no matter that they knew they were different people, it doesn't matter, it changed nothing. They just didn't, it wouldn't work between them.
No.
I thought that was,
That was a much better reason. But again, I think it's one of those that to pass censorship and to like also to keep track of like multiple timelines in a drama and multiple characters time traveling. I think it could very quickly, unless you have a really good grasp of the story, it can very quickly become very messy. So I think it's one of those that, yes, the book does it better, but I think to simplify it and make it like better on screen, if that makes sense, then maybe. But they could have, admittedly, they could have found a better reason for them to break up, because it is, it is one of those scenes that I'm like, I don't. Although I will say, and actually, this is a nice segue into like our favorite scenes. One of my favorite scenes is that scene where they break up and she like walks away and then she walks into Shiwei and he kind of
oh
like
yeah,
hugs her and she's just there, but I'll never find anybody. And he's just like, you will, like, you will find
yeah.
somebody. And everybody on this, who's watching that scene is just like, he's right there. Like, your end game is right there. So, and ultimately, I think for me, I was on Shiwei's, ship straight away, because he's the only one who can, like, even not knowing that she's a time traveler and any of that, he's the only one who could really understand her, because they're kind of like two pieces of the same coin in a sense. They have very, very similar what's the word I'm looking for, moral compasses, and they know stuff needs to be done to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And I think my frustrations with Zhang Zi as a character is that very often he's so clean, so everything is either black or white, and I don't know if that's just a thing that the drama did for his character, but for him everything is like black or white, it's good or bad, and like he makes his decisions very much like that a lot of the time. I think that's why he wouldn't necessarily work with Zhang Xiaoning, because she's very much a gray character, like walking that gray line, and Shiwei is the same. So I think that's ultimately why I was so very much on their ship.
Zhang Jie was very similar in the novel, but also I found his character. So this was a good exploration of the kind of person who thinks that they see the world in you know, bilateral terms. If everything
Mm-hmm.
is black or white, you're right or you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like one decision that you made, which may have been made to save somebody, but it went against a code that, you know, you were expected to follow at work or something. Just having made that decision, you are now a bad person in
Yeah.
his eyes.
Yeah.
The problem with a character like that is that they lack compassion and they
Mm.
don't treat situations case by case.
Yeah.
So even though he's idealized in Juning's eyes, like she sees him as like the purest snow.
She really
I find the
does.
character, yeah, but I find a character like him really it's actually a character like that is very hard to write as the lead of a drama,
Mm.
because if a lead is so rigid and they can't change with the situation and they can't because what happens, it leaves no space for anybody else's morality. Only
No.
their morality
Yeah.
matters, only their way of seeing right and wrong matters, which makes it very hard for them to truly love somebody else, because you have to love all of them, the rights
Mm.
and the wrongs. But if you're constantly judging their rights and wrongs, it makes it very hard to have a relationship
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
person like that. So Zhang Jie was interesting. I think again, Wang Jing, you definitely elevated the character. The drama version was a little too dry. Like he was dry to begin with in the
Yeah.
novel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The drama version is really dry. It was simply Wang Jing's way of playing him that made him somewhat, you know,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think ultimately, I think Zhang Xiaoning was in love with the idea of him, but not necessarily with, him. I think she saw in him everything she was trying to be like that, what she thinks is like the ultimate good guy and exactly the right moral compass, that sort of thing. I think she idealized him so much as the person that she would like to be, in a sense, but I don't think she was ever quite in love with him, and I think that's why it's I was very much a she way relationship, ship right from the get-go. I was like, give me all because I love morally gray, complex characters, and I think that's very much what he is. I loved his journey. I love the fact that there was like a growth in his character, but also the fact that even though we get to the end and he's still as petty as he was in the beginning is ridiculous, but in such a good way as well. I was like,
No,
this.
I think he gets pettier. He definitely gets terribly petty by the end, because in the beginning he was able to remove himself from a situation, but once this man falls in love, he
No.
is like the
So petty.
his heart grows like 100 times smaller, and he's like, I just have Juning in it and there nobody else
No,
but her.
no, that's it. So yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes. I will say, for me, I'm just gonna go through my scenes because I've got a few.
Can I tell you my favorite
Go,
scene
go for
in the
it.
drama? It was when they have that confrontation where Juning finally yells out that because he's like, why can't you consider me? Why can't you love me? Why can't you look at me? And she's like, it's because you killed me
Oh
before.
yes, is this the
And
iron? Is this the famous iron scene where he shows her, or am I confusing it?
what is the iron
Because
scene? I don't.
the iron scene is basically when they are having this big fight, and then he kind of compares them to forged iron as opposed to
Yeah, that's the one.
porcelain.
That's the
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
That's the
This
one.
is one of my favorite scenes as well. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
this one down. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That monologue was pretty epic. I was lost initially though, because I was not getting the metaphor, but I
Yeah.
like the whole the vibe of it and the aesthetics carried me through. No, but in that moment where she's like, you're the one who killed me, and he doesn't question it,
No.
the logic of it, the explain what you mean, nothing. He just straight up
Accepts
takes
it.
a knife and like makes her stab him.
Yeah, we're even now.
I mean, it's not even that he's thinking along those lines. I mean, though, of course, they don't say it in the drama, but it's pretty clear it's a clean stab. He knows exactly where he stabbed it and he didn't hit anything vital. she seemed to know that too, because she just turns around and walks away. She's like, heck with
I'm
this.
done. But
I love
I
that so
think,
much.
yeah, I love that scene. I love the fact, like, his whole dialogue, that whole dialogue. This is one of those dramas. Like, there's been a few this year, and this is one of those that I'm so sad that I don't fluently speak Mandarin, because I feel like there's just stuff that we lose out as international viewers that, like, don't, completely understand the language. Because I feel like there's a lot of really good dialogue. But that whole scene where he's making her look at the iron and like saying that they could never be porcelain vases because they are iron that is forged back together and becomes stronger, and I'm like, that is such a good metaphor for their characters in general. And I love the tension in this scene. Is just like chef's get like these two are just playing off each other so well. You can see the tension, the anger. There's just so much raw emotion in that scene. I adored it. It's definitely one of my favorites.
And
We
as a match up with that particular scene, much later, the two of them, I think they're lying in bed. This is like many scenes later, and she asks him, "Why did you never ask me what I meant when I said that?" And he says something to the effect of, "I don't think I want to know, but but basically he implies that I am fine with not knowing, but I realize that this is important."
yeah.
And that it's but what I absolutely loved about that thing, but like you said, I wish I could memorize the dialogue there, because I thought that scene was so well done. The thing that I loved about this is something that you find missing in most drama couples, in that there is like this almost immature need to know each other's every secret. I need to know everything that's in your heart,
Yeah.
everything that ever happened in your past, tell me everything. But the maturity that it takes to sometimes just say, I know this is important for you. It doesn't have to make sense to me. You don't have to tell me the details.
Yeah.
It's enough for me to know that it's important to you. I mean, listen, I don't know how intentional that was, but this is the kind of stuff that gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. It's those little things. There's another specific scene that kind of goes hand in hand with that, where so for me, I think Shiwei's character is a character that he doesn't give up power, and he doesn't give up like what's the word? He likes to be in control of everything, and he doesn't necessarily give control to anybody else. But when it comes to her, he does. He relents to her every single time. And one of the scenes is when they get together, and he kind of turns to her and he says, I want you. That's that whole scene. And they kind of sleep together, and I thought that was very racy for a C drama. I was like, there's a lot of tension in this scene. And then they kind of wake up the next morning, and she turns around and he goes, you're mine. And she says, I am not. Like I am not. And he just says, then I'm yours. And it's like, it's that type of thing where it's like there's no sort of, there could have very easily be a power struggle between them, because they're both very controlling people in a sense, but he just kind of relents to her every single time.
Yeah,
And
because it's part of the way his character is written, that he has a lot of trauma, right, from his childhood.
Yeah.
So the way he represses his trauma. Now, I think this is what was done badly in this other drama that we just finished airing, Journey to Love, where the Shifu obsessed kid, with his childhood trauma, he just went unhinged and like just unleashed that randomly and irresponsibly. But when you look at Xiaoyi's character, he is extremely controlled and measured and calculating. And again, this is something that you love, that there is exposition where he is explaining why he is the way he is to his friend, or his friends are observing something about him. His character actually gets a lot of love that way he's developed. So there is this moment where it's basically explained in the drama that he needs to constantly be in control, because if he lets go, then he's scared that he would completely lose his mind, because
Yeah.
the trauma is that bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And because that is so important to him, he will not, share of his feelings. Even when he starts realizing that he has feelings for Zhurning, it takes him a while before he is
He
like,
even
fine,
admits it to
I'll act on
himself.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like he's repressed that part of himself so much. But once he lets go, once he lets in the idea that I'm in love with her and I want to be with her, there is this unhinged possessiveness that
Mm.
comes out.
Yeah.
Now, again, in general, I'm not a fan of unhinged possessiveness. In fictional characters, I have a measure of tolerance for this. In
Mm-hmm.
reality, I have had I have had really bad reactions to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anybody showing that kind of emotion. But I as a character, as a way a character is explained to me, how he is, why he is the way he is, it makes sense for Juning
Yeah, yeah.
perfectly. It's not possible for a character like that to go through what he did and not have some horrible cracks in his character. He cannot be
Absolutely.
perfect. And
Yeah.
I liked that it's in that reckless possessiveness that it comes out. However, it would have been horrible if he had been paired with somebody who just bent to that possessiveness,
Yeah,
who
no, there's
didn't
no way
push
she's
back.
bending. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But he, as you said, he relents to Juning.
Hmm.
So when she pushes back, he's immediately like, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay
I'm
then.
done. Yeah, fine, fine, fine. You can have it. And actually, this, before we talk about some other favorite scenes, I think this is, I wanted to write this down because I think there was quite a bit of commentary about like how their relationship felt very toxic. And I don't know how to feel about that because I don't think it was. There's elements to it. To me, this reads like a dark romance in a sense, if that makes sense. So I don't think so. You guys tend to discuss this way more on Dramas Over Flowers, and I thought since I was going to have you on, I was like, I thought this would be quite a good question. Like, do you think the relationship was really that toxic, or what are your thoughts on that?
So in the last 10 episodes, and this may be because they had to cut out all of the breathing moments in a
Mm.
relationship. And they just had like, it went from scene to scene to scene to scene. So
It's
you
very
had,
quick.
it's very quick, like because they were having a slow burn, and then suddenly it's like somebody lit a fire and everything is burning down all at the same time.
Yeah.
So what was sacrificed, I suspect, because again, this was something that was there in the text but is not there in the drama, is Juning's sides of it, her developing feelings. Again, as an addendum to what I'm saying, I also think Bailu, this is a weakness that Bailu has. I
Mm.
have found throughout all the dramas I've watched of her, as much as I love her as a character portraying her individual emotions, all other kinds of emotions, or the other in every other situation, she's such a fine actor. But when it comes to romantic feelings,
Yeah.
Bailu is weirdly repressed,
Mm.
where like the way she portrays her character's emotions. So sometimes she might be sitting somewhere and talking to somebody else, like she's talking to the princess and she's discussing how she might be in love with Zhao. But at other times, like the way she's reacting to him while having like a conversation where he's like, why don't you love me? And
Mm.
her reaction is just so vehemently negative
Yeah.
that it doesn't look like it's coming from any place of conflict. It's just a no. It's a
Yeah, yeah,
straight
yeah,
up
yeah,
no.
yeah.
And when you have, and again, I'm not blaming the actor completely. I'm just saying to pair with Bailu's general repressed way of emotional development in romances, to pair that with how the drama's romantic development was written, I think that worked to the detriment of
Yeah.
of the general romantic development in the last 10 episodes, so that you had quite a few of these moments where it felt like he was just constantly pushing at her
Mm.
when she was saying no. Of course, there are specific scenes that also stood out to me as just unnecessary. The way they were shot, the cave scene, for instance, where it's the first time where like after like post the
Yeah, yeah,
kiss.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
next morning, he's like, I'm sorry for what I did last night, which is that he had forced a kiss on her. And she's like, it's fine, you were not in your map, you were not thinking correctly. And then the drama has him say, no, I knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah, that could have been resolved if he hadn't said that line. That, I think that scene bothered a lot of people because in that scene specifically, they had him like hold her neck a lot of the time and whatnot. So I think there was choices made in that scene that would not necessarily, if he had not said that line, then,
That you
could
could
have given
forgive
it a
a
bit of
lot.
grace. Yeah.
Exactly. Just like her character was willing to forgive a lot because she realized that, he was in an extreme situation where he was not
Yeah.
fully in control of his mind. And again, and had attempted to, and sorry, in addition to that, I need to say that it's a general trend that we have not just in drama land but in social storytelling, where we allow men this excuse of losing control over their desires a lot. So a lot of behavior is excused as well. He's a man, he has
Yeah.
desires, how can he control himself so much? That excuse is never okay. Again, I allow fiction a lot because it's basically a culmination of fantasies and not reality. So I will allow this to exist, this excuse that he lost his mind, he was not in control of himself, and he was kissing her. But instead of saying, I knew exactly what I was doing, which completely upends all of the story that you had put forth before this, where you constantly told us that he had no control of himself when he went into that state, and he tried killing people before, right?
Yeah.
So instead of saying that, he could have just said, yes, I had no control over what I did, but something to the effect of, I acted that way because of
Of this. Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't come from nowhere. Like something
Yeah.
to, like somebody who can actually write dialogue should write
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Not me. But
Yeah.
it could easily have been because the effect that they wanted in that moment was Juning realizing that he had feelings for her. Like absolutely blatantly cannot look away from the truth of it, that realization.
Yeah.
But it could have been done differently. Instead of saying, I knew what I was doing, it could have
Yeah.
been like, it happened because of
I
this.
do wonder if, and this is not by any means an excuse or anything, but I do wonder what the actual Mandarin for that like specific line is, if it's exactly the same as what we got in, I'd have to ask somebody who does speak it fluently and kind of like get because sometimes, yeah, I know it's not an excuse to fall back on, but stuff does get lost in translation. And, for the sake of making it accessible for an international audience, sometimes they're quite poetic in the things that they say. But for us, it would make absolutely no sense. So I do wonder for a line like that specifically, if like that would be the complete accurate translation for it, and if there is something, even because I think even just a slight adjustment to a line like that could make a huge difference to that whole like segment of events. So it's one of those that I really do wonder.
The other thing that I agree with you, it's without knowing exactly what the line was and the exact meaning of it, it's probably not fair to blame it completely on the dialogue. But the other aspect of this is that this is the first time they're having an intimate moment where he's kissing her. And it's clearly a non-consensual scene. She is not into this. This
No,
is not.
no.
And so what happens in this kind of scene is the attitude of the production towards the scene matters. Like how are you showing this? I think one of the major things, even more than the dialogue the next day, that bugged me when I was watching that scene was the music used. They had romantic music playing underneath. And they
Yeah.
keep on doing it. Like they kept on doing this thing when something that was clearly an uncomfortable moment, and you could have just allowed it to be an uncomfortable moment. This guy is acting unhinged because
He
of
is.
severe trauma.
Yeah.
Allow it to be an uncomfortable moment. Instead, you have romantic music playing while the girl is literally struggling to be free.
Yeah.
That's just not the vibe, man. And then they released those behind the scenes clips. It was all over the internet, that the scene of the different angles that they shot that kiss from. There are 20 different angles that they
Angles.
shot
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and that was widely published,
Yeah.
and with every angle shown, like long extended shots of that kiss happening, the camera drawing in, the camera drawing back, the number of times they had that kiss. Like, if you are making this the part of the promotion of the drama and you're adding romantic music to it, you're basically telling the audience that this is the romantic moment.
Yeah.
First time they're kissing,
It is
rainbow.
not a romantic moment.
So the attitude of the production really matters here. You can't
Yeah.
act like fiction exists without the context of the larger world. There were like some 50 people standing on set while that was thing was happening. The context of the production matters. The audience's relationship with the promotional, the marketing material online matters. The music you're using under that scene matters.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. So I think that scene specifically was one of the scenes that I think made a lot of people uncomfortable. And again, I feel like it's one of those scenes that choices were made. And if only there had been, that you only need a couple of little adjustments for that scene to be, better in a sense.
Correct. I agree.
Let it be uncomfortable. Let him, not say I wasn't in control of my actions, because at that point the audience knew he had these fits where he would go into an uncontrollable sort of, rage and whatnot. So let it be that. Let it be uncomfortable. Let it be seeped in this like raw emotion of sense. Add like a different sort of music behind it, and actually this scene would have been, done in a much better way, I think.
Can I tell you something connected? Because in my head, none of these things are isolated incidents. So when a production treats a scene like this, like it's like glory, hey, best first kiss ever, you see hints of similar approach to romantic relationships in other aspects of the drama. So something that stood out to me from pretty early on in the drama was Juning's relationship with her childhood bestie,
with Yan Lin. Yeah.
Because the drama starts in the first timeline showing us a situation where Yanling becomes a very bitter young man.
Yeah.
And when he comes in with like the conquering force with his uncle and his dad to like take over the palace, he basically coerces Juning into a sexual relationship.
He does.
And
he
I'm
does.
saying coerces, it's they don't completely make it. It seems rape basically.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you go through that with somebody who used to be your best friend, you used to trust, the drama constantly emphasized how brutal she was in her rejection of him, but that doesn't excuse what he does. That justification, that even having that in the same sentence is really disturbing to me. Okay, fine. So that happened. That was a timeline. That was a past timeline. So now you're revisiting a new one. She's come back. She wakes up in her 18-year-old body. When she's pretending to be a man, she is lying in bed with, her bestie and his bestie, who's the prince and possible future king.
Yeah.
And they are all just like lying there after a night of drinking. She wakes up and she continues her friendship with Yanling like nothing happened. Like they are teenagers and like they have a complete clean background.
Like, yeah.
The only reference that's made to what Yanling does in the first timeline in the future is when the two of them are sitting in prison when Yanling has been exiled and before he's sent out. And he's like, I feel like you are not, like it'll never work between us, right? Like and she's like, no, because I had a dream that you did something horrible.
Yeah.
And he is like, well, I shouldn't have done that in your dream. and like the moment is great. Honestly, the moment is beautiful, but there is no build up to this moment. You've had like some good 10 episodes of her acting like just casual besties with this guy, a guy who sexually assaulted you and coerced you into a long-term sexual relationship. I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I that is something that they could have explored a lot more, but I also think like again, it's one of those things where there's so much a drama can do into those sort of, topics and whatnot. I think there could have been, there's a lot of emphasis in Yan Lin's character's growth in general, because there's one scene that I quite like. So there's a scene where, so one of my favorites is when they go off to get the princess back, but they have to go and get the Yan family first. And Shi Wei kind of walks in, and at this point, Yan Lin and his father kind of like accept that that's his, cousin and nephew, and everybody kind of gets out, and he kind of goes and sees the family tablets and whatnot. And I love that whole scene. I think it's beautifully done. But the scene that specifically like shows Yan Lin growing as a character, I think, and it's in no way in any excuse at all, but it's the one that comes after, where he speaks to his father, and his father is just like, aren't you like mad at your cousin for, being with Xiaoning? Because at that point you can see that there's something going on between them. And he's just like, well, there's nothing to be mad about. It's her choice. I just should be happy for, whatever she chooses. And I was like, this is quite nice to see for a second male lead, because we so often see second male leads being so obsessed with with the female lead that they don't acknowledge her choice. They don't acknowledge like that it's feelings, and that you do not have control over feelings. You can't force something. And I think as a like as a comparison to that scene, and not saying what he did was right, it was definitely not right, but
No, but in the second timeline, you can't fault his behavior.
No,
He is a noble young man. He, like, his relationship with, I'm sorry, a couple of times during this recording, I mistakenly said Yanling was Zhao Wei's nephew, his younger cousin.
Younger cousin, yeah.
It must have been confusing for some listeners. I'm so sorry. He, like, the whole relationship with Zhao Wei, Yanling, and Yanling's dad, I love that so much. Yanling, so again, in the second timeline, I liked that Zhuning, in her reasoning, didn't think, hey, it's because I rejected this boy brutally, that's why he turned evil. It was more that he went through a lot very quickly. Like, he lost his father, he lost everything, and he was brutally, punished for something he hadn't done. He was framed, and I rejected him at a time and gave him no helping hand. All of that together turned him into that bitter young man who was able to do such evil things. And then she set out to prevent that from happening. And so I'm fully, I am happy with how they dealt with that whole thing. Like, that Yanling wasn't put in that situation, that he has his father, he even has an older cousin now. Zhuning consistently kept helping the family, so it doesn't matter whether she rejected him or not. He didn't feel abandoned by her. It's all of those things allowed him to, choose the light path instead of the dark path repeatedly. I'm happy with his storyline. My sole issue with their whole thing was Zhuning waking up in an 18-year-old body and seeing her friend who goes, on to do horrible things in the first time, and then being like, yeah, we're still besties. We chill. She has zero, like, not even like an initial, fear response. Nothing. There's nothing.
I think she just I think this is probably one of those things where they might have had to cut out some stuff, because it feels like she very quickly accepted that she had traveled back in time, and she was now going to go on her merry way to fix everything. So I think we could have probably done with a couple of scenes there where she just kind of like tries to find her footing. She finds her footing very quickly, in a sense.
The other place where a bit of fear response would have really helped the story is with her relationship with Zhao Wei. Because from the very beginning, the moment Zhao Wei accepts her as a pupil and dubs her Ninger, which, by the way, that I love that scene where she's like, but why do you call me Ninger? Nobody else does. And he's like, because I didn't think, I thought you would prefer this name. And I was just like, that's such a, there are so many moments between the two of them that they just show you that they are perfectly in tune with each other. and there's no exposition, there is no like info dumping necessary. You just
No.
feel that they are perfectly in tune with each other. And so but she was really afraid of him in the first timeline, to the point where him giving her a knife basically made her and honestly, again, it was a bare knife. She's not stupid for thinking he wanted to kill her. Though
No.
historically, when you give somebody an unsheathed knife, it's a threat. It's supposed to be a threat.
Yeah.
It was Xiaowei doing an inexplicable thing. If he wanted her to have the knife to protect herself, or the dagger, I'm sorry, he should have
Just
sent her
said
a
so.
note.
Just say so.
Anyway, so she was really deeply scared of this guy, right? But her response to him from the very beginning was like a child approaching a slightly intimidating teacher, and not someone who's like terrified of this guy. Like there
Yeah.
is no hint of that. And so towards the end, where he's like, I always felt like you're scared of me, I'm like, when did you when did you ever feel like she was scared of you? How did I never see it?
Uh,
Man.
even
But
the
I mean, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, even like when I think it's a good thing to sort of pick up on these things, and this is why this is still a 5 to me, because I can see all of these issues and I can ignore all of these issues to like just adore, the drama. And I think I think the drama does emotion and like emotion connections really well. One of them being, I adore the princess, the friendship that develops between the princess and Zhao Shangning. Like the one of my favorite scenes is like right off the bat, when with them two specifically, is when Xiaoning draws the flower over her scarf for the very first time. And I'm like, and that whole dialogue there, it's like, it's the scar of battle, you should be proud of it, and you shouldn't be, nobody is allowed to judge you for it. And I love that. And then in comparison, when we have another scene that I adored, was the when they're about to cut her off to the other country, and she gives her the box of dirt from her land, and like, come and bring me back, come and bring me this. And I'm like, that whole relationship, I loved it. I think they did like friendships and relationships really, really well, in a sense where characters that are not technically supposed to really like each other become really reliant on each other. And that just goes to like that whole ending scene where they all kind of sit together at a table, and it's like, it's just lovely, because you've seen these characters struggle for I get it. I don't always need the happy ending, but for this one, I was just like, I love this
It was
scene.
Unexpected. I was sure
it.
It was going to be sad.
Yeah, I didn't expect it. I thought somebody is gonna die. Like, I was very adamant that I thought, and then all of a sudden we get this scene where it just, and like that very last scene where Shi Wei takes the arrow from his father, and you have everybody there, and everybody's rushing to help him, and it's just like, it's beautiful to see, because he kind of went from somebody who didn't really care for anybody, and like, he cared for his revenge and he cared for setting things right, but he didn't really care for himself or for others. And then all of a sudden you have all of this, like, it almost becomes a found family in a sense.
Absolutely.
And I kind of adore that. I really, really did. Like that last scene of just them being together, and even like we get the extra scene, which is where they get married, and it's so them, because it's just the two of them. They don't want the funfair, they just want to live their lives in peace. They go off and they live like off in the mountains, and that's all they want. They just want to be left alone to live like a nice life together. And I kind of feel like that's a perfect ending for them in general. So yeah.
I loved that they didn't leave us with ending trauma. They
No,
were like,
no.
here, take something that is sweet, and like, it leaves this lovely taste in your mouth, and like just here. because
Yeah.
it's so unnecessary. I find a lot of C drama tragic endings just unnecessary.
Mm,
Like it has nothing to do with the story that you're trying to tell. It has nothing to do with like the character development. It's a tragic ending because you want it to be, I don't know, memorable, epic. I'm not sure any of
no.
those targets are met. Um okay, in the last fight, because in case I forget, this is again one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, yeah,
In that battle scene thing where Zhao and his friends are cornered. Like Zhang Ji is fighting off like the oncoming like Zhao dad's minions.
yeah, yeah,
And, like
yeah.
that whole thing is happening. The hilariously like everybody who's a warrior is like fighting everybody else, but Zhang Ji and Zhao are both scholars, so they're basically just getting felled left and right. I loved that even Zhang Ji was a better fighter than Zhao Wei till the very end. Boy
Actually,
can't fight at all. I love that so much.
I love we so often our male leads tend to be in historicals, they tend to be great fighters, great this,
Yeah.
great warriors. And Wei is a great warrior. He just plays with his mind instead of his like he uses his mind. That is his, his fight and his best asset, and he knows how to use it. And then he just surrounds himself with people who will fight for him. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of adore that because it's not something that we very often see that, somebody is, especially a male lead, like he doesn't fight with brute force or anything. He fights with his mind, and that's, really appealing to see every now and again as well. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
That was a great scene. It was like a little bit of almost comedy to lighten up the scene because that was intense, that last little bit. So yeah, I loved it. I just in general, I love this drama. I think it's really well done. I don't. I think the only other thing I would touch on is actually the OST. I loved the OST. I think there's one song that is like I just have it on repeat, and it's called "Won't See You in 3,000 Worlds" by Jing Long.
I love
I,
that so
I
much.
love that song. I just adore that song. I think it's yeah. And they have you watched the variety show that they did together?
I did. I
I
did.
loved it. Loved it.
It took me a while to find like an English subbed version, but it was hilarious. It was
It's on
perfect.
iQIYI. It should be on iQIYI.
Eventually, but because initially when I found it, I couldn't get the CC to like give me like accurate English. It was just
Really?
gibberish. Yeah,
Oh, how
which
bizarre.
is so frustrating. And then finally, I got another friend of mine to start watching this drama, and she
Yeah.
was hooked. She like. I mean, I thought I was hooked. She was like full on in. And so she finally was like, the English subs are up. Watch it
Yeah.
right
I
now.
loved it.
So I went and watched
I
it.
mean, I will never forget the scene of the thing is Zhangling He, Bai Lu, and Wang Xingyu, they play to their characters a lot in this variety show. And the fact, like, that scary room, and she's just, like, huddled between the two of them. I'm living. Because she is very known for being very much a scaredy cat. So
I love her in all variety. I think
so funny.
she is so entertaining.
She
And
really is.
like I was watching something else that had a lot of other female actors also. I forget which variety show this was. It was a while back, and I think somebody threw something at her, and she just kept dodging when she was supposed to catch it. I don't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but it was just it was just.
She is very funny. So yeah, I really really liked that show. And actually, the thing is, when this was being filmed, there was rumors that Zhang Linghe and Bai Lu were dating because
Yeah, I heard
she
that.
had been at his house by herself, and apparently that's straight away giveaway that they're dating. But I will say, I'm not endorsing looking into people's lives and whatnot. But even in this variety show, the way this man looks at this woman, just like as themselves. I mean, they had the Aichi scream night, and it was Wang Hedi was sitting down, Bai Lu was sitting next to Wang Hedi, and there was somebody else sitting next to Bai Lu. And like halfway through the night, Zhang Linghe just asks to swap seats, and he's sitting with like Bai Lu. So there's the three of them, and there's like loads of clips of just them playing games together while the show's going on. And I'm like, I'm living for this. This is the type of interactions that I live for. Like, so yeah. But I, especially in like that variety show, the way he looks at her, it's like if this is fan service, geez, it's a whole other game. But yeah, I think I've said everything I needed to say. I love this drama, highly recommend it. Have you got anything else to add, Paroma?
Uh, a few notes about some of the things that, because I think I emphasized way too many of the things I had like issues with, but that's honestly not the note I want to end on. There were so many things I loved. Zhoning's relationship with her sister, her stepsister.
Oh my god, yes, I
half-sister.
didn't even get into that. I loved their relationship. That was beautifully done.
And she was an extremely intelligent woman. Like the fact that both sisters are really intelligent, one of whom is blatant about her intelligence. Like she uses it and she's not afraid of other people knowing that she's smart. Whereas the other sister is like quietly intelligent, and
Yeah.
she doesn't use her intelligence to get advantages for herself the way her sister does.
Yeah.
And it's just different uses of really smart brains. And I just liked that they didn't just have her be a sister who's like jealous of Juning, or that she's just this self-sacrificing overly noble girl. It's
No.
not that. Like, she's also capable of strategizing, she's also capable of laying out pieces so that she can gain advantage in the future while also being a nice person. I was just so happy that the way they wrote the sister and the developing relationship with Juning. That was, I love that. Even when Juning in her second life decided to help her sister, it's not like she just completely forgot what happened in the past. So this is what I don't understand, right? The way Bailu's characters are written, where her character's relationship with other characters are so fleshed out and so consistent. Why is it that whenever it comes to the romance, her character start acting inconsistently?
Yeah.
Why? But everything, like her relationship with the princess, for instance, like that was so beautifully done.
I love that relationship. Yeah. I will say for whatever, one of the good things that I really loved about this drama was like the female relationships were really good. There was mean characters, but like they had really good base strong female relationships that were like not petty at all, that they just helped each other out in a sense. So yeah, I really love that.
They were so good. And even when you had like that the schoolmates of the princess, that entire group of women, and the mild politicking that was happening in there, led by Zhu, which, okay, I think I must have seen Aliza Ye in other dramas before, but I think she must be a really great actress, because I have never hated a character, like a supporting character, this much, this quickly. Like she really, however, you know how towards the end, where when she's discarded by her father, and instead of just going quietly into the night, she walks into her king's chamber and becomes a concubine.
I'm like,
and all the characters were like, "You treacherous woman, how could you?" I was like clapping. I was like, "Yes, boss move. Why should she go quietly into the night?"
Yeah.
I was solidly in her corner for that one.
I think it was her best choice, but I was still really annoyed because that meant the princess had to be sent away.
Yes, but but there was like, unless you are somebody who's just like solidly, besties with the princess, there's no reason why Jushu should be sent away in place of the princess. Like,
Yeah.
it's sacrificing a woman's life either way.
Yeah.
Why is one prized more than the other? The only reason the viewer prizes the princess more than Jushu is because Jushu has already been shown to be, a person who can do some really evil
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But however, I'm fine with her being sent off to marry somebody who could potentially kill her. But I found it so petulant on the part of Juning and Jawe, but especially Juning, because she was doing all the plotting, where she's like, how could she not fall into my trap? How dare she? How evil of her. And
Yeah.
I'm like the woman has no obligation to fall into your trap, man. Like, it was a good one, but it failed. Like, take the punch, move on. It was just funny to me. That it's just one of those drama choices that was hilarious. On the other hand, I thought the relationship with the crown prince, with the basically not the crown prince, the guy who was basically the king, and Zhao
That was interesting. Yeah.
So well done, man. I have not emphasized enough how much I love Zhao Wei's character, but this is one of the aspects of it that I love so much. Like, he came into the kingdom as basically taking somebody else's identity. He was essentially a spy for a rival, but then he got into the good graces of the king and slowly,
built his way up.
Built his way up. But he always, made decisions and helped the king achieve the king's desires. He was slowly winning his goodwill and his trust. But the king is an extremely paranoid king. That has also been established. So at any moment, that tension was always there, that he could throw Zhao away at any moment. He could distrust the guy at any moment. But the fact that at exactly the right time, he turned around and told him who he really was, and the king didn't react in the worst way possible.
No.
That their friendship mattered. Like, the sacrifice that his mother had forced on that child years ago, that it stayed with the king, that he grew up to have a conscience and guilt towards Zhao. I loved that. I loved that so much.
I think
all friendships.
I think all the friendships, I loved it. I think ultimately Shiwei is just a mastermind. He truly is. And like I said, for a character that doesn't really use himself force, is just he played the game to a T, and I was very much invested in every single move that he was making, and that everybody else was making as well. So yeah, I just love this drama. I really did.
Also, on a final note, the fact that they had Juning basically, so at no point did you ever feel that Juning was ever not just that she was not subservient to Zhao, but that her intelligence was never shown to be slightly less than Zhao's. It was always that she had her own plans, she had her own strategies, and sometimes Zhao would not sometimes, often Zhao would not know what her strategies and plans were. She was doing her
thing. And
and Zhao was often just waiting for her to come to him to ask for help, whereas she's already put her plans in motion. And I love that so much. I can't tell you, because if she was somebody who constantly ran to him for advice, their dynamic would have been totally different.
It wouldn't have worked.
Because she was somebody, it would not have worked. But because she was somebody who he had to constantly be catching up with, but also somebody whose intelligence he could never underestimate, and she has overturned his plans over and over again when she disagreed with them, but she didn't go and tell him that she disagreed, because that trust, it took a while for that to build. She just went and undermined him, and then he has to scramble to figure things out. I love their dynamic so much. It was perfect. I'm going to rewatch this drama.
So, I think That is it. We've talked at length about this drama. I loved it. I highly recommend it. It's it's a top for me for this year. I think it's just one of those dramas. So yeah, I will leave it at that. I think. Have you got? So let's sign off, Porma. Where can people find you?
I am most active on Twitter at the Drama Notes or X, whatever. I'm also on Instagram, also at the Drama Notes, and that's pretty much it. I hang out there sometimes, so come and
So
talk to me.
yeah. So I will link all of those in the description box. Thank you very much for being on. It's always a pleasure. I think we always get some really interesting conversations going. So I can't wait to release this one. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this, and I shall see you next time. Bye. Want to find an Asian drama community? Then join the Tea and Soju Discord server, where we chat everything from C-dramas to K-dramas to J-dramas. To chat with me, check out any of the socials. Please help the podcast by rating, viewing and subscribing wherever you listen to help others find this little corner. Lastly, consider joining Patreon to further support the podcast and receive extra content. All of the links are in the episode description. That's it. This has been another episode of the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and I'll see you next week for more C-Drama chatter.